Welcome to our session. Our session is called Expanding the Rules of Engagement in the Connected Classroom. My name is Ken Yoshioka. I'm a senior instructional technologist at the University of San Francisco, and we
And I'm
have
Stephanie Sear, faculty in Environmental and Energy Programs at the University of San Francisco.
and what we wanted to do today was kind of talk about this idea of what's called the high flex classroom. We have students in the room, instructor in the room, students online. How do you create an environment where it's seamless and an engaging experience for both audiences and the instructor? So we're going to talk about the process and the experience. So first off, in the beginning, what happened to be, what led us to this project? So it's an introduction to the new normal, remote instruction and the HyFlex classroom. Right now, it's all about that. Mostly remote instruction, but we do have some schools who are doing the HyFlex classroom too. And, we are ramping up for all remote, but during spring or maybe in summer, we might be going to the HyFlex for the entire university. How's that going to look? What kind of approach do we need to take? So this is the story of what our experience with Stephanie Sear and her HyFlex course. So Stephanie, tell us about your story.
Right. So just keep in mind what we're talking about was pre-COVID. So I'm teaching a course in our graduate program, Environmental Management. We have students who commute. The classes are evenings and weekends to accommodate working students. And our program decided we want to expand our offerings on weeknights to students who just couldn't travel that far through rush hour traffic to join us. So I was tasked with a very limited lead time to turn our research methods course into a HyFlex course.
And so when we get to the consultation part, we don't have a lot of rooms that have equipment built in with microphones and cameras and just connections to do this type of class. So a portable solution was needed with a rapid setup and breakdown, because many times classroom space is at a premium. There's back-to-back classes all the time. And so to quickly get in, set up, get into your class, and then at the end of class, quickly break it down so the next class could come in. It's truly, truly a challenge. All right. So the planning and preparation. The first stop was consultation, and this is always the first stop. So Stephanie, talk about some things you need to change, like in your course or maybe even your syllabus, things that had to change to accommodate this new modality.
Right. Well, first I want to say how grateful I am that when I received this task of going to a HyFlex class, that there was a real human being that I could call upon, because I didn't have much experience in doing this at all. So I wasn't even sure like where to begin. So that was a great part of the planning preparation, that I'm like, I'm going to call Ken. And Ken actually came to my office and we sat down and talked through the course. And yeah, what the setup might be like. So in my syllabus and the course planning, I did have to make some adjustments to think, okay, when we have a group exercise, or how much discussion to put in, what pre-recorded material, if any, or what materials to utilize. So I made those type of adjustments, but otherwise kept the course design fairly intact.
That's an interesting point because, Stephanie had an idea. This is how my courses run. It may not be the same for other instructors in other departments, in other disciplines. And that's why I feel that it's so important to consult first to find out from that, in this case, for Stephanie's perspective, how did she run the class? So I can visualize it and then offer some recommendations. And we work together, partnering together. It's not me telling her, okay, this is what you need to do. But we work together to figure out what's going to be the best solution for her class. That's why there's no cookie cutter solution. Every instructor needs to be, you know, pretty much handheld, you know, have that consultation and decide during that discussion what's going to be the best, what's going to be the best setup. Class dynamics are so important, and the class dynamics might be different for each instructor. Managing the mixed audience too. We'll get to this when we take a look at the room, but managing the two audiences. How do you keep both audiences engaged? And all of that comes out in discussion too. Right. Right. Now the equipment. So I'm going to have a listing of all the different types of microphones. Remember, this is a portable setup where an instructor brings it into the room, sets it up themselves. So we had different types of microphones. This is the set that we chose for Stephanie's class, the SoundTech USB dual microphone, a boundary microphone, a Logitech C930 webcam, and a tripod to mount it and to place it appropriately. We also had like some USB extender cables in case we needed to bring the distance out a little bit further from the podium. Okay, so just the equipment choices were really key in our discussion. Now, characteristics of the room. So this is the room that she taught in for that semester. So Stephanie, why don't you, just kind of describe when you walked into this room and you knew you were going to have to do high flex, what were going to be the challenges right off the bat, just seeing the room?
Sure. Well, even before high flex, I found this to be a somewhat challenging room because of the LCD monitors. Like, students needed to get fairly close to be able to see them well. There wasn't a central, large scale projection. So I'm like, oh, half of my students are remote, half are in the room, and they need to see the physical screen and also capture my screen, from the computer. This is when I thought we're going to have to cluster on the side with the podium so that, everybody can be in the camera.
Yeah, that's true. And you look at this, let me just get my laser pointer here. And you can see that it's a wide room with the two projector or two LCD monitors, and they're not that big. So as Stephanie mentioned, it was a challenge to get people to see everything that was on the screen. And so we had, in this case, we had everybody be on the side with the podium. It wasn't what the students would choose, so they can just kind of lounge around all over the class, but we made them cluster. So one, their classmates could see them, and two, it's just simpler for Stephanie to be able to, work the room. So that's the challenge. And, in every room is going to be a little bit different. There's not really a standard setup for every room on campus. Every room is going to have its own challenge. So just seeing the characteristics determines also the type of equipment. In this case, because of the layout, the kind of microphones we chose worked out best. It may not be the same for another classroom on campus. All right, the setup and practice. So we talked about the consultation, kind of deciding the setup, kind of deciding about the dynamics of the class and the layout of the class. So the setup and practice. So I made Stephanie, I brought the equipment to her office and I made her set it up. The microphones, the tripod, and the camera. connecting it up, practicing over and I don't know how many times I made you do it, but it was more than a couple of times. And I believe, I can't remember if you had one of the newer USB-C Macs, but if that was the case, I would need to bring one of these too, a USB-C adapter with enough USB ports to hold everything in. Tell me about the setup and how that worked out for you, Stephanie.
Right. Well, because this was a portable solution, it meant I also had to bring my own laptop rather than using the computer in the room because we had to do setup so quickly, setup and takedown. So, I felt like I had become a journalist on tour where, okay, I'm ready to go. I've got, all this equipment together. I've practiced the setup, um, which was helpful because, when we as instructors are teaching a skill, we have our students practice. And that's where I appreciated in working with Ken and having the technologists not just say, here, this equipment is great and leave, that he made me practice. Um, yeah, and then, the other aspect of it was that I also had to connect to the in-room technology to make sure that both the visuals and the audio were going to the room screens as well as the computer going. We utilize Zoom for the remote part. So to make it happen fast and smoothly, just practice.
And the other key thing is keeping it simple. So I had all this other kind of equipment I could have recommended to her, but because we don't have staff to go into each room and to do it every single class session for every instructor, we had to keep it simple because the instructor really needed to do it themselves. So Stephanie needed to, and it was in the evening, so I didn't live close by. So I don't think my family would have appreciated me every, was it Tuesday and Thursday night to stay late, to do the setup and help her take it down. So it was critical that Stephanie felt comfortable in doing it herself. And so that's what the practice makes perfect. Okay. So this is an example of her setup. And again, it may be different for other faculty. All right, so testing is set up in the room. So here, again, we just kind of put a little divider in here. Not a divider, but we just kind of virtually set up a divider. Okay, all the students have to be on this left side in front of this screen right here. And then setting up her computer on the podium, deciding where the camera was going to go to provide the best angle when she was lecturing. And the nice thing about a camera on a tripod is that she could swivel it so that she can have it face the students when it was time for discussion. And to be able to kind of move between the podium area to the student area so that the students online could feel like they're part of the class. There was never a time where the instructor and the students were off camera, which would have been a little awkward. And I've actually run into that where an instructor walked off camera and didn't realize it. And so the people online were just kind of going, okay, we don't know what's going on. So it was a little odd. And then setting up the microphones to capture both her at the podium, as Stephanie at the podium, and also capture the student voices if they had questions. So it took a little bit of cooperation from the students too to speak up and to enunciate and to really project. It's not only to have people hear each other in the room, but to have their classmates be able to hear in the online classroom. For example, in Zoom, each student online could adjust their volume controls, but there's only so much you can do. So we really needed to have the people in the room really help out. And then conversely, for the people online, to make sure that their audio works, their video works, so that people in the room, in the physical room, could see and hear them clearly. And so, as Stephanie mentioned, connecting up to the AV in the room for the speakers as well as the visuals, so that that worked seamlessly to make the experience seamless. Okay. Any additional thoughts on the setup, Stephanie, that were challenging or
Yeah, I'll just say that the brilliant part of the camera on the tripod, even though I had to manually move it, that just, it really, yeah, that was a helpful feature. And we can talk more about how it worked next.
okay, all right. All right, the first class setup. So, as Stephanie mentioned before, it's not like we, the technologists, said, okay, here's the equipment. Good luck. See you at the end of the semester. When it's the beginning of the semester, instructors are going to have other things on their mind. So I made it a point for people who needed this type of setup to go to the first class. And I didn't do the setup for Stephanie. Still made her do it, but I was there just in case. It's like, oh, I forgot how to connect this together. And I could just remind her. So that's the first class setup. And I think I think it was just one, maybe two sessions. And after that, Stephanie was on her own. So how did you feel when you had to do that first setup in the first class? What was that like for you as an instructor?
Yeah, it was a bit nerve-wracking, to be honest. I mean, I felt like I knew what to do, but I was really glad that that you were there, Ken, that technical support was there for that first class, because until you really do it live and get into it, you just don't know what might happen, what glitch might come up. So I highly recommend that approach.
Right. And we're going to talk about in the final thoughts about scalability too. Okay. So that was the first class setup. Now the experience and final thoughts. So this is where I want, Stephanie, you could just kind of talk about the faculty perspectives and the student experience. I went to the first class, I kind of stayed for a little bit, but then you were on your own. So tell me about your perspective in that modality as a faculty member, and then if you can tell us about the students, what their experience was like.
Sure, sure. And this is where I'm really glad that I have some performance experience in theater, music, dance. You don't usually get that in a science program, but because of that experience, it felt more natural to me to think about, okay, where is the audience? What's the flow? Yeah, what kind of energy are we looking to build up during a class session? Um, but certainly utilizing and having to manage the technology just places an extra level of of thought, as you're live in the classroom. Whereas typically I could just go right on the whiteboard, um, or just send the students off to different whiteboards to do that sort of work. And instead, I was really thinking like, okay, I'll have the camera on me and do this bit of lecture for 15 minutes. And then, right, I have to turn the camera and then have the students do discussion. And I tried as much as possible to create interaction between the students physically present and the remote students. So in general discussion, I would proactively call on people, call on people in the room, call on people remotely. I'd even switch the order of who I would call on first, just to create a feeling, of equality in the room. Um, but when we did have small group discussions, there I did place the online students into a Zoom breakout room, breakout rooms for them, and the physical students got into small groups, in the room. Um,
I have to
and
say,
oh yeah,
that, we didn't mention about the web conferencing or the video conferencing system. And, I did that on purpose because it doesn't matter what you use, Google Hangouts, WebEx, GoToMeeting, or Zoom. In this case, we use Zoom. The, the perspectives, the consultations, the strategies are all the same. It doesn't matter which system you use. These skills are essential, for the setup and to provide, a good experience for both the instructor and the students. So I just wanted to, because people are going to wonder, well, what kind of system did they use? So we're going to try
right.
and make it kind of web system agnostic, right? Okay.
Certainly, certainly. And I guess I'll just add as we're getting to our final thoughts. I did a mid-semester sort of poll informal survey, and then more of a formal survey feedback at the end of the course to really hear from the students. And at the end, I guess I was surprised at how positive the feedback was. Um, the remote students felt included. They were so grateful that they didn't have to, spend 2 hours fighting traffic, that they could still join in the class. And for the students physically in the room, like they were happy they got the in-person experience and could still connect with their remote classmates. So the we all adapted, pretty quickly and embraced the format and just kept, kept focus on what we were aiming to accomplish content wise. So really positive overall.
And I think, just the way that you prepared before the semester, even though it was a short ramp up period, you prepared and both mentally and physically prepared for that modality. And, it's, other faculty maybe don't have that kind of experience like you do. And I think that's where us as technologists really need, maybe I would go to the first 3 sessions, right? Just to be there just in case. Watching Stephanie in the first class, I could see the confidence that she had, even though it was her first time. And it felt pretty good that she was going to be okay. If she was going to have any problems, she would call me. But, for others, it may be a little bit longer in terms of getting people used to being in that modality, especially checking the dual audiences. So how important was that, for the student experience, that for both audiences to feel included, to be inclusive? So that was just I think it's a great story. Okay, our final thoughts. So what worked? What worked? And now let me have Stephanie start. What worked in this modality for you? What were the things that worked?
Yeah. Keeping the system simple that definitely worked, um, because I had the bag with the equipment kind of ready to go. So that simplicity, I think, is definitely important. Um, And just like embracing the technology in the audience so that you're not always commenting, oh, this is so hard. No, you just, you as the instructor need to bring that positivity, like greet people, talk with them, invite them in, just lay it out how it'll work. And that makes it go smoothly.
And from the technologist end, what I realized and what worked really well is to listen to the instructor first. Don't start offering, oh, okay, you're teaching this class. Here we go. Here are the things you need to do. But to listen to the instructor first. And often when I first started doing this, and I've been kind of experimenting with the HyFlex classroom long before Stephanie came up and asked me to assist her. So I've been kind of working with other faculty in kind of one-off situations. But when I first did it, it was like, okay, here's the solution. Pick up the equipment and I'll show you how it's set up, and okay, you're good to go. But what I realized, what I really needed to listen, especially when Stephanie first came to me, it's like, oh my goodness, okay, she's got a short ramp up period. She's probably gonna be pretty stressed. So I realized I really needed to listen first to see first where was she at emotionally with the situation, and then to kind of match that, show some empathy. You're not just a technologist doing training or say, okay, here's the instructions, but you kind of need to be a therapist too, because sometimes those situations are stressful. And I can guarantee you, like right now for remote instruction, it is absolutely stressful. So us as technologists, as instructional designers, need to have empathy, not only be technology and just pedagogy, but be therapeutic as well. Because if we're stressed, faculty are going to be triply stressed. And so providing that level of kind of emotional support is important. It's really important. Now, the challenges, we just kind of talked about some of the challenges. The emotional part of it, in a totally new modality, again, from a technologist point of view, the challenge was to remain kind of vested in the instructor. Okay, to not just say, okay, they're done, next project, but to make sure they're going to be okay, to check up on the instructors. How did the first class go? Oh my gosh, it was horrible. I need a refresh, and then to work with them, right?
The challenges are really, do your kind of scenario analysis, I guess, to to think through, okay, like my class was very interactive. So I had to really think, how long is it going to take to get people into groups? Yeah, just what are the ways to keep them engaged and check in? Um, and just kind of thinking through that in advance really helped.
Yeah, and like I said, we didn't mention, this video conferencing system. So that's even another layer. It's making sure that the instructor felt comfortable using, in this case, Zoom for our university. Zoom to be able to start the meeting, get the audio and video checks, being able to navigate the meeting itself. Oftentimes, faculty will ask, "Hey, can I get someone to be my co-host, so I don't have to do this?" Well, there aren't many faculty that have the luxury of having a TA. So really, faculty need to do it themselves. And to, again, as Stephanie mentioned, to keep it simple. Don't throw in all the bells and whistles. Oh, hey, there's all these great features. You should try all these. But just focus on the things that are going to be important for the class. But the other challenge is the ability to scale. So we have a one-on-one little project here. But what if we have 20, 30, 50 faculty? Say like in the future, maybe this next spring or even next fall, we're going to have a high flex situation. How can we scale? This is where, if it was just me, I'd be working 24/7 doing this, just this. So we're trying to enlist our ITS help desk to be technology helpers, to be able to have maybe faculty work with each other to provide like a buddy system to help each other out. And I know that I've referred other faculty to Stephanie, if they had a kind of a situation, they had a one-off. I think I remember I did have a faculty member come to you and ask you for your kind of your advice and assistance with doing a kind of a high flex class. So having that ability to have faculty help each other out, so important to kind of network. All right. I mean, that's our session for today. You can always contact us for more information about our project or just on the HighFlex classroom in general. I'm going to have a lot of documentation and just documents up on the site to be able to kind of peruse through to kind of see what we're all about. But we want to give you a taste of what our experience was like.